Chapter 3. The Threat of the Secret Organization. Dr. Carter and his team continued to work intensively on the exhibition of Enki's genetic legacy. However, the repercussions of the information they found in the laboratory were beginning to spread. Secret organizations and dark forces took action to get their hands on Enki's genetic information. One night, while working in the lab, Dr. Carter noticed strange activity on his computer screen. Their computer had been hacked. Dr. Hughes immediately shut them down and tried to take control of the situation. "Someone is trying to hack into our systems," he said worriedly. Dr. Carter said, "We need to beef up security immediately. We know how dangerous this information can be in the wrong hands," Dr. Carter replied. The next day, as preparations for the exhibition continued at the museum, Dr. Carter and his team were reviewing security measures. The museum director said, "This exhibition will be a big hit. However, we must take extra precautions in terms of security, especially when it comes to such valuable information," said the museum director. "We must prevent this information from being used by people with bad intentions. Enki's legacy has great potential for humanity, but in the wrong hands, it could be catastrophic," Dr. Walker added. At a security meeting on campus, Dr. Carter met with the university's security department. At the meeting, detailed plans were made for the security of the lab and the museum. "We've backed up and encrypted all the data in our lab, and we've controlled all access in and out," Dr. Hughes said. "This is important not only for physical security, but also for cybersecurity. We have to take extra precautions to protect all our data," Dr. Carter added. A few days before the exhibition opening, Dr. Carter and his team completed their preparations. However, dark forces were also at work. One night, the museum's security cameras were blacked out and a group of masked men entered the museum to steal Enki's tablets. Dr. Brown heard the security alarm and rushed into the museum. "This is an attack! They want to steal the tablets!" he shouted. Security guards quickly intervened, but the attackers were acting professionally. "We must act immediately to secure the tablets," Dr. Walker said. Dr. Carter and his team hid in a secure part of the museum and waited for the police to arrive. After the incident, Dr. Carter and his team returned to the university. Dr. Hughes said, "Who is behind this attack? Why do they want to steal Enki's legacy?" Dr. Brown said, "This information holds great power and potential. If they get their hands on it, they can control human history and the future," Dr. Brown replied. Dr. Walker said, "This is just the beginning. We may be facing greater threats. We must be more vigilant to protect Enki's legacy," Dr. Walker said. Dr. Carter met with his team in a secure location. "This knowledge has great potential for humanity, but we have seen how dangerous this potential can be in the wrong hands. We must do whatever it takes to protect Enki's legacy," he said. Before we continue with our video, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and support us. Thanks. We can keep this information safe by encrypting and backing it up. We also need to be more vigilant against this kind of attack, Dr. Hughes added. Dr. Brown said, "We need to find the forces behind this attack. Who wants to have this information and why?" asked Dr. Brown. Dr. Walker said, "We should only use this information for scientific purposes. We must work harder to bring Enki's legacy to the benefit of humanity," Dr. Walker replied. The opening of the exhibition was met with great interest in the museum, where security measures were increased. Dr. Carter and his team showcased Enki's knowledge of genetic engineering and its impact on humanity. Visitors marveled at the authenticity of Sumerian mythology and Enki's legacy. Dr. Carter said, "This exhibition could be one of the greatest discoveries in human history. It is a great opportunity to introduce and preserve Enki's legacy to the world," Dr. Carter said. Dr. Hughes said, "By using this information properly, we can shape the future of humanity, but we must prevent this information from being used by those with malicious intentions," Dr. Hughes added. Dr. Brown said, "This exhibition is important enough to rewrite human history. Enki's legacy could change everything we know about the origins of humanity," said Dr. Brown. The exhibition was a great success. but Dr. Carter and his team knew they had more work to do to protect Enki's legacy. The threat from secret organizations still lingered, and Enki's genetic information held great potential for the future of humanity. Chapter 4: Protecting Enki's Legacy. Dr. Carter and his team continued to work hard to preserve and understand Enki's genetic information. However, the threat of secret organizations still loomed over them like a shadow. To increase security measures, the team hired a private security consultant, Alan Richards. Richards was a former intelligence agent and had extensive experience in security. "Alan, after reviewing our security measures, can you tell us what we need to do?" asked Dr. Carter. "First, we need to increase the physical security of all lab and museum spaces. In addition, we need to update cybersecurity protocols. We need to protect your data with a multi-layered encryption system." Dr. Hughes said, "We can make some innovations in cybersecurity. We can install additional software to make our databases and networks more secure," Dr. Hughes added. As the exhibition continued, Dr. Carter and his team decided to delve deeper into Enki's genetic information and the Sumerian tablets. In the process, they also began research to understand the identities and intentions of secret organizations. Dr. Brown sifted through historical records and ancient texts, looking for clues. "Why do these organizations want Enki's information so badly? We need to understand what kind of power this information can give them," Dr. Brown said. Dr. Walker said, "The historical record mentions many secret societies seeking Enki's knowledge. These societies wanted to interfere with human evolution and use it for their own benefit," Dr. Walker added. While working in the lab, Dr. Carter and his team were trying to obtain more data by comparing Enki's genetic information with modern science. Meanwhile, Dr. Hughes noticed that some of the symbols on the tablets had a previously unnoticed sequence. These symbols are not just genetic codes, but a kind of communication language. Enki may have left a message for future scientists, Dr. Hughes said. "Deciphering this message could help us understand Enki's true intentions. We must use this information for the benefit of humanity," Dr. Carter replied. While the exhibit continued to attract great interest, Dr. Carter and his team were working hard to decipher Enki's message. Meanwhile, Richards began to monitor the activities of secret organizations. One night, Richards returned to the lab for an urgent meeting with Dr. Carter. "Amelia, we have observed an increase in the activities of secret organizations, and they may be planning a major operation to obtain Enki's information," Richards said. Dr. Carter said, "What do we need to do to protect this information? How can we plan to stop them?" Dr. Carter asked. Richards said, "We need to increase security measures. We also need to gather more information to reveal the identities and goals of these organizations. We can use this information to disrupt their plans," Richards replied. As Dr. Carter and his team gathered more data to decipher Enki's message, they also continued to monitor the activities of secret organizations. Dr. Hughes developed a new algorithm to decipher the language of the symbols, which helped them decipher Enki's message. "This message is Enki's warning to humanity. It gives us guidance on how to preserve humanity's genetic makeup and be prepared for future threats," said Dr. Hughes. Dr. Brown said, "We must take this warning seriously. We must do everything we can to use Enki's knowledge for the benefit of humanity and to prevent it from being compromised by malicious actors," Dr. Brown added. On the last day of the exhibition, Dr. Carter and his team prepared a major presentation to share Enki's message with the world. In the presentation, they explained Enki's genetic knowledge and its impact on humanity. This presentation attracted worldwide attention and showed how important Enki's legacy is for humanity. Dr. Carter said, "This knowledge has great potential for the future of humanity. It is our responsibility to preserve Enki's legacy and to use this information properly," said Dr. Carter. Dr. Hughes said, "Using this information, we can preserve humanity's genetic makeup and make great strides in the fight against disease. But we must prevent this information from being used by people with bad intentions," Dr. Hughes added. Dr. Brown said, "Enki's legacy is important enough to rewrite human history. We must do everything we can to preserve this information and pass it on to future generations, Dr. Brown said. Dr. Carter and his team continued their work to preserve Enki's message and genetic information. In the process, they continued to monitor the activities of secret organizations and develop strategies to disrupt their plans. Dr. Carter said, "This is just the beginning. It is our duty to preserve Enki's legacy and use this knowledge for the future of humanity," Dr. Carter said. Dr. Hughes said, "Yes, this information has great power, but we have to be careful to use that power properly and protect Enki's legacy," Dr. Hughes added. "In the process, we will continue to work to preserve the history and future of humanity. This legacy that Enki left is a great gift to humanity," Dr. Brown said. And so, Dr. Carter and his team continued to work to preserve Enki's legacy and the future of humanity. In the process, they did their best to overcome the threat of secret organizations and use Enki's knowledge for the benefit of humanity. This was one of the greatest discoveries in human history, and one that would open the door to even greater discoveries in the future.